James Melendez, James All About Business. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to talk about Action Item Management, AIM, and Dashboard Center. Now, it's a strategic and tactical action management center to get things done both on the personal level as well as your work life. So stay tuned and I'll tell you some things I've learned in the use of AIM. Stay tuned. So AIM, I'm just going to use that term more often because it's going to be easier to talk about. I might use the word action item, but I'm going to use the word AIM as well. So here we go. Now, this is something to think about in terms of, how often have you been feeling like you're not making any progress? You do a lot of work on a daily basis, both in your personal and your professional life, but you feel like you're getting no traction. You feel like you're falling further behind. And in fact, you might be falling further behind because what I do suspect, and this is what happened to me, is I was really paying attention to maybe priority items versus weekly and monthly items or daily items. Or I'd find that I'm suddenly, rushing through to get something done because I put everything else off to do that priority item. As opposed to looking at holistically, what do I need to get done in my life on the daily, weekly, monthly basis, and for the long term. Now, I created this because of my long-term inability to get things done that I find to be satisfying. One of the things I've been working on is a business book, but it seemed to be that it kept going on and on and on in terms of, the future will get here some distant time from now. Ultimately, that didn't happen. What happened was I kept putting things off. I didn't make a plan. I didn't pen in specific dates, milestones, things for me to get my book done. I actually just kept putting this off and off and off. If it wasn't going to be something that I was going to do, I needed to take this off my long-term priority list because it just wasn't possible. Or maybe it was possible, but I'd have to think about that at another point. To me, it's important to do this book. So I wanted to keep it somewhere. I think when you put things together, you visualize them, you can contextualize, you can partner together, things that are similar, and keep things together. So when you look at things and you put them together that are like materials or like items, then you're able to strategically think about how you might approach them. How might one closure of an action might help to close out some other actions in the other related action items that you were working on. Now here I use a simple gauge here. So I did this in Google Suite. Now this is something that I just created very quickly, easily, and I update and I look at this frequently. Now I added the week that I'm looking at, the date. So I bucketed together things that are important to look at. I have daily, priority, weekly, monthly, as well as mid to long-term projects. So below that I put a progress bar, and then I still look at completion rate as well as satisfaction rate. Progress bar, I put completion as a green. I'm getting things done. So on the satisfaction, I've listed this as a yellow. I'm getting them done, but I'm also taking longer than I'd like to get them done. Or that perhaps I'm not using the quality touch that I'd like to on getting these done because I have so many to do. Ultimately, it's my way of saying, okay, maybe there are things I need to focus in on. Maybe on this particular map here, I need to look at mid to long term because both of those are on the rud. So this is something that, you keep to yourself, you manage yourself, and you can be honest with yourself. Where are you on this? And you could really make some progress by really tinkering around. So by analyzing what you're doing, understanding what it is you need to get done, and really prioritizing those things you feel are important to do. So I was really focusing sometimes not on the full picture of the things I need to do, but maybe on specific items, maybe just the dailies or the priorities. That's fine. However, there are things that I'm forgetting along the way that are feeling dissatisfying. Sometimes you may not exactly know what it is and you feel like a sense of, I'm not getting enough done. And that is because you are scattered with the many things you're working on, and it's really hard to keep track of all those things. It's much more satisfying when you can keep it in one document like this. And you can look back and you can make those marks and progress points that need to be done and add more to it, or even better, take them off when you're done. So on this, I also put in action item completion. I will show you the action item log so you can look at what I use to move that forward. I did put a horizons on the bottom, and I like graphical materials because to me, they make me look more closely, carefully. My eyes are really intrigued. I want to look at these things that are going to be much more graphically oriented than just a list of things to do. Because sometimes when you just have long lists, you don't get those things done because sometimes your eye just glosses through them really quickly. I put a horizon function on here, which is, I have 3 things coming up and I need to make sure that I'm, thinking about them because they're not due right now. They haven't even started right now. They're on the horizon. So I put this on here because to me, I find that to be of value. You can customize this in ways that you can find valuable. This is just a thought starter, and I hope you can implement something like this on your dashboard. Now, when I look at this, I'm going to look at daily, priority, weekly, monthly, and mid to long term. I'm going to stop at priority because here's an example where I put things that I need to be working on that are really important to do. So I look here in terms of the icons. The icon, say for PowerPoint, is really something that I don't even have to think about. I see it, I know exactly what it is, I know exactly what I need to do. Or maybe the data on the bottom, which is data analysis that needs to be done. And then you can see in the upper portion, I need to create these documents. So these are things to think about. So you can put this in any color that is appealing to you. I put mine in orange because it's one of my favorite colors, and it's something that I definitely pay attention to. So maybe you want dark blue, you can use dark blue. If you don't like this format, I use a very rectangles within rectangles. To me, it's a way of getting things done. And I end up using a good portion of these, and I have the capacity to do more. So this is easier for me to look at and put together those particular categories of like action items to do. And this way you can keep that all together. So I'm just going to go through these others and you could glance at this. So weekly, monthly, I put a dividing line between what is a weekly item, what is a monthly item. So sometimes, you can calendarize these things, but in some ways, unless you're looking at your calendar all the time, which I'm not always looking at my calendar, I'm looking at my activities that need to be done or actions that need to be completed. So this is one way to help me to get there. And then I looked at this, so specifically I'm going to point out business book because I talked about that before. I put on here specifically what I'm doing. And so when I'm making some actions, I put some notes on here. I'm 20% of the way through. I put a star because while these are other important items in my long-term actions that I want to be taking, I want to really think about this more strategically and making sure that I'm making some traction. So maybe I can't make traction this week or next week, but maybe I can the week after. This is a way of keeping that all together. What I did with my project plan is I decided, since that is a priority, I put a star on there, as you can see. Here, I put through the project plan, the business book, my summary, what is it? Where am I in this process? I put some historical notes on here. So it's a way for me to look at this project plan and to make some actions in the future, such as to be decided. So I don't know when I need to do them or how I can get them done, but I know they need to be done in the future if I want this business book to be created. So this is my action item charter, my AIM charter. Now this is somewhat of an accountability, but it's also your intentions. What did you mean by doing this? What do you want to do on this in the future? That is, I will review every day, including weekends. I've listed that there. Or I might put, in this intentions list, I'll review daily except when I'm on a vacation. Or maybe list all activities of importance and that have dependencies. Or maybe those that don't have dependencies will go somewhere else. Or maybe I'll organize that slightly differently. Organize the AIM in ways that will make sense to you, that'll be helpful to you. So maybe you want to list things out on a quarterly basis. That's fine too. It is whatever helps you to make progress and to move forward. So this is just to serve as a reminder. Also committed to being optimally organized, but not to spend a ton of time doing this. So I never spend more than 5 minutes on this per day. I have links to resources. I have 3 of them that are related to the AIM. And the AIM has action item log, resources, and a chart of organizing documents. And so we're going to look at this particular chart. So just like a chart of accounts is my chart of organizing document sources. Google Docs is something I use, Apple Notes. And I just, as an example, I put Toodly-Doo in here. And this is something that I've used in the past. I no longer use in that particular fashion for getting action items done. So I'm using just 2 primary sources, two primary tools. So before I was using AIM, I was using Toodly-Doo, Apple Notes, and Google Docs, and also my calendar. So everything was not centralized in one location. And so I had to go through and spend so much time trying to figure out really what was the source and, was I following through and getting things done? Was there information that was in Toodly-Doo that wasn't in Google Docs or Google Calendar? So over time, I decided to put things, pare things down over time. So instead of 8 different places, they could be maybe 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. The fewer, the better, right? And if you have a method around it, you can really, take as little time as possible to organize and maximize your time to get your actions completed and to do so in a quality manner. We need more time to do quality work, and this is really helpful to get there. So my chart of organizing and documents is in a different tab altogether in this particular sheet in Google Docs. Now this is really to think about, I have a lot of documents or books, for example. These resources live, say, in my public library account, or maybe they're in Amazon. Maybe it's a physical book, maybe it's an Apple, maybe it's a PDF copy that I have. So I need to make sure that I know where it is and I can write it down. I definitely have another list here. This is just an example, but it's one way to reduce the amount of time that it takes to find those particular books that you're looking for, or that source documentation that's really important. Maybe you're writing a book, maybe you're writing some sort of documentation that needs to show any sort of references, and they're harder to find because they live in a lot of different places. And lastly, I'm going to show you the action item log. So we're going to click on here, we're going to go to the action item log. So here is something that's really important to me, is my action item registry or action item log. And to me, this is really helpful to getting actions documented. So for example, the book that I just listed, the book project that I'm working on, this is a great place to put in all your actions. So I can list even the most minute actions and list them in here. The creation date, due date, completion date. So this all drives the status. So there is a formula for the particular status function that you're working on. And let me show you what that looks like. So you can see here, these if statements help you to get to what's on track or what's completed or what's overdue. So I can look at this and know where I am with a more complex project or a task that has many dependencies, or even if it's something very simple. Maybe I just want to document, things that are really super easy to do, just so that I know that they're done. Now, the actual log that I keep for myself is much more lengthy, but it really gives me context of when I do things and how long it takes maybe to get things done. So maybe I could learn from the past and apply that for my future action items that I'm working on. So this is one way of doing that. I think an action item registry is essential to helping you get things done. Now I have a exhibit like this that I'll use in my Team Excellence, which is a different methodology. Now when I talk about this particular methodology in terms of AIM, it's really meant for the personal side of what you do, and it's also individual of what you do at a company. Now this action item registry can transfer to the Team Excellence execution. So this can be shared with a lot of people in the enterprise or the organizational setting. This is essential to do, helpful to do. It'll help your organization and team to really move forward. And again, that's a different video, that's a different conversation, and different intent. So this is only for you to utilize, and so I want to give you that comfort. And so if you're only utilizing this yourself, or maybe you do want to share it with someone else, maybe it's a partner in your life, but ultimately the action item registry is really for you. But I think this is, again, a really helpful way of getting things done. So I think when we write things down, we have a creation date, we have a due date, but we don't have a completion date. And so we're not really making sure that it's triggering maybe a status, or maybe even seeing how long it takes to get done. And maybe perhaps it's done in a longer period of time, and that's good to know as well. You can never have too much data to help you to get things done in your action item management. So in your action item management, you want to think about your center and how you want to develop this. I hope some of these elements have been helpful. To me, they're helpful because it's not something that's strenuous, because when it becomes difficult to use, or it's cumbersome, or it takes too much time, that's when things go abandoned. Not only have I never abandoned this particular methodology, I'm really expanding this out because I want people to utilize a tool that can be helpful. Because, there's a lot of promise in terms of applications. Everybody has an application, but it really doesn't help people to get things done. In fact, you're still exactly where you are when you began. That's how you get traction to getting things done, by having a methodology, a way of getting things done, and getting the big picture, the full picture of all the things you need to do. Thank you for watching. More methodologies, more business topics to come. Thank you for watching. Stay connected. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.